Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another edition of Against the Odds. So, a couple weeks ago now, we got some leaks of 5-color Dragon Commander cards from the upcoming Commander 2017. So, in honor of that, our last Against the Odds poll was all 5-color cards. We had an all 5-color Against the Odds poll, and in the end, we had a super clear winner. It was Maelstrom Nexus, the 5-color enchantment, pretty much crushing the competition. So this week, we're heading to Modern to play 5-color Nexus Control. So a couple of quick reminders before we break down the deck. First off, if you haven't subbed already, do it. It would be amazing of you. Much appreciated. Also, if you want to vote for next week's Against the Odds deck, follow the link in the description of this video. It'll take you to an article on the MTG Goldfish site. Down at the bottom, you'll find a poll featuring 5 options for next week's deck, so check that out if you're interested. Anyway, let's break down 5-color Nexus Control. So, Maelstrom Nexus, on one hand, is just a super powerful card. So, 5 mana, you get an enchantment that lets us Cascade with the first spell we cast each turn. So, basically, every time we cast a spell, we're going to get to cast a cheaper spell. But it's kind of at random. It's the first one we hit off of the top of our deck. So that's kind of the challenge of Maelstrom Nexus, is there isn't a good way to build a specific combo out of it because it's random. So you can't really control what you hit, especially with Maelstrom Nexus. It's not like the Living Index where you can kind of just play cards of certain converted mana costs. Since this is 5 mana, you really gotta just kind of go with it and hope to get as much value as possible out of your Maelstrom Nexus. So I considered a couple of different options. I tried a 5-color Maelstrom Nexus Panharmonicon deck, but it didn't work that well. We had a problem with drawing too many things that did nothing, Maelstrom Nexuses and Panharmonicons. We would also have to find creatures, and even then, it wasn't very good because we couldn't fit in much interaction. So I tried that, decided that instead we would go with a Maelstrom Nexus Control deck. So we do a couple of things to help control the variance. The biggest one is our 1-mana spells. So Thoughtseize, Path to Exile, Fatal Push, Lightning Bolt. These are cards we want in a control deck anyway, because they do good things. Thoughtseize lets us disrupt our opponent on turn 1. All of our 1-mana removal, super powerful in the early game. Path scales to the late game. So these cards are cards we want anyway. And then they also allow us to kind of control our Cascades a little bit. So one way we can control our Cascades is with 1-mana spells, since the only converted mana cost less than 1 is 0. So we have Ancestral Vision. So once we get down to Maelstrom Nexus, we know every time we cast a Thoughtseize, or a Path to Exile, or a Fatal Push, or a Lightning Bolt, we're going to Cascade into Ancestral Visions. It doesn't matter where Ancestral Visions is in our library. That's what we're going to hit. So Ancestral Visions is just super good because it lets us refill our hand. We're basically killing our opponent's creature, Thoughtseizing a spell from their hand, and getting a free Ancestral Recall tacked on, drawing 3 cards, finding us more action, finding us our finishers to close out the game. So that's one way we can control the synergy or the impact of our Maelstrom Nexus. We also have some cards that don't really control what we hit with Nexus, but work really well with Maelstrom Nexus. So Muldrifter and Shriekmaw, thanks to Evoke, give us a way to kind of cheat on the mana cost with our Nexus. Muldrifter, technically 5 mana, so we can get a spell 4 or less off of our Maelstrom Nexus, but we can cast it for just 3 mana with Evoke. Shriekmaw, same thing, but we can cast it for 2 mana plus. Muldrifter draws us some cards, helpful. Shriekmaw kills something, helpful. And then Murderous Gut is maybe the most powerful one of them all. We do have fetch lands, we're 5 colors, so we gotta have our mana base functional. So we have cards in our graveyard to delve, and then we can Murderous Cut for a single mana and end up cascading into a ton of different things. A Cryptic Command, a Wrath, a big 4-mana spell. So we get a ton of value as far as mana costs are concerned by using these cards with our Maelstrom Nexus. As a way we can kind of cheat on mana and cascade into bigger things than we should be able to. The other sweet thing is Snapcaster Mage, and this isn't a direct synergy, but when we cast a Snapcaster with a Nexus out, we're going to hit either Ancestral Recall / Visions, which is fine. We don't mind hitting that. That's great anyway. away, we draw 3 cards, or we're going to hit a 1-mana spell like Path to Exile, Fatal Push, Lightning Bolt, Thoughtseize. And the sweet thing here is how the Cascade resolves. So we cast our Snapcaster Mage. Maybe we don't even have a spell in our graveyard yet. We Cascade. We hit, let's say, Path to Exile. We cast it for free, path one of our opponent's creatures. It goes to our graveyard. Then when the Snapcaster Mage resolves, we can target that path with the Snapcaster, flash it back for just 1 more mana, do it again. So we get some sweet synergy there. Can also do stuff like cast Snapcaster Mage on our opponent's draw step to try to Cascade into a Thoughtseize and take the card they drew for the turn. So there's some really cool tricks we can do there. As far as the rest of the deck, this is where things get a little bit random. We're just hoping to kind of get lucky. So let's say we cast a Grave Titan, which is one of our finishers. We can't really control what we hit. We could hit a Thoughtseize or another 1-mana spell. We could hit a Dragonlord Ojutai, and there's no way to really manipulate that. So these cards are basically our finishers. Ojutai, super sweet because it's a hexproof blocker, helps us dig through our deck to find our nexuses. Grave Titan, very quick way to close out the game, makes 10 power when it enters, 4 more every time it attacks. So just a really big threat. Thragtusk to stabilize against burn and against other aggressive decks, and then a single Lingering Souls, which has some nice synergy with our Nexus because we can cast it, get some spirits, the next turn, flash it back, again triggering our Nexus to get another Cascade trigger, so it's kind of 2 Cascades in 1 card. Then we have our removal, Supreme Verdict, Damnation, Anger of the Gods, necessary in a control deck, helps us stay alive to get to our Grave Titans and stuff. Kolaghan's Command and Cryptic Command are kind of just general value, so one of the unique aspects of this deck is we don't have counter spells, or many counter spells. We do have cryptics. Other than that, no counters in our main deck or our sideboard. And one of the tricks of building around Cascade is we want to minimize the bad hits. So every card in our deck, we want it to do something when we hit it in just about any situation. So if we were casting a Grave Titan and had potential to Cascade into a negate, that's really bad because we can't even cast a negate. It does literal nothing. So we didn't play any counter spells because those are basically whiffs and would make our Maelstrom Nexus worse. The one exception is Cryptic Command, because Cryptic Command is fine even when it's not a counter spell. Worst case, we cast an Ojutai, we Cascade, hit Cryptic Command, we can bounce our opponent's land, draw a card. That's still enough value that it's fine. Plus, it gives us a counter that we can use like a counter against combo decks and stuff like that. Also, tap out our opponent's team as a Fog. Does enough stuff that we can get away with playing it, and it's a fine Nexus hit. Kolaghan's Command just does everything. Can get a Snapcaster, a Grave Titan back from the graveyard. Main deck Artifact Hate is helpful. 2 for 1 against decks like Affinity. So it does a lot of cool things there as well. And then we have a couple more things. Coalition Relic just to fix our mana. The mana costs are super challenging in this deck. Trying to ramp into a 5-color spell on turn 5 means we need super specific mana costs. Coalition Relic gives us 2 different colors of mana, which makes it much easier. Also helps us cast our big spell finisher in Cruel Ultimatum. I really hope we get to cast Cruel Ultimatum because this card is super sweet and does so much. It's a ton of mana, but if there's ever a deck that could make it work, it's probably ours. Plus, it gives us an ability to Cascade into anything in our deck. So we can get even a Grave Titan or a Thragtusk or something if we have the Nexus down when we cast Cruel Ultimatum. Last but not least, Sphinx's Revelation, and this is the one exception to the want everything to be good with Nexus rule. Cascading into a Sphinx's Revelation is actually super bad because we can't pay the X, so it just does absolutely nothing. But it's a way to refill our hand, gain some life. We can make a decent amount of mana in the deck, gives us another late game spell. So I figured, even though it's not great with Nexus, we could make this one exception because Revelation is so powerful. Mana base, we're not going to talk about everything, but mostly a ton of fetches, shocklands of almost every kind, 1 Vivid Creek, 1 Mana Confluence, and then a bunch of basic lands. In the sideboard, Leyline helps against burn, helps against discard, Stony Silence for Tron and Affinity, Fulminator Mage for Tron primarily, Relic for graveyard decks, Inquisition, Abrupt Decay, Maelstrom Pulse, Supreme Verdict gives us some more removal and interaction, Timely for aggro decks to make some tokens, gain some life, and an Ancient Grudge, and that is 5-color Nexus Control for Modern, and that's our Against the Odds deck for this week. So, is this going to work? Maybe. So I think we can be good against creature decks. We got tons of removal, and in the late game, Maelstrom Nexus is going to give us an insurmountable amount of value if we can get there. We just cast a Nexus. You can even stack them. If we have 2 or 3 Nexuses, we're just getting so many free cards each turn, and they go right to the battlefield. The downside is it's random. So apart from being able to guarantee ourselves Ancestral Visions in some situations, we're just kind of crossing our fingers, hoping for the best. So we can't really control what we hit, but we have a lot of powerful stuff to hit, and with a bit of luck, we'll hopefully get the right cards in the right situations. The one thing that scares me is combo-y type matchups, because as we talked about, we can't really play counters because of our Cascade. They're just so bad with Cascade. So if our opponent's plan is just to scapeshift us on turn 5 or something, turn 4, or storm off on turn 3, there's not a whole lot we can do. We got the 2 cryptics. Maybe we'll draw them or cascade into them, but we don't have a lot we can do. But I think we can generate a lot of value. We got instants that we can cast and do stuff on our opponent's turn, so we can cascade twice a turn. We got some really cool synergies and loops, so we can draw a ton of cards. We got sweet finishers like Grave Titan and Thragtusk and Cruel Ultimatum. So I'm looking forward to it. What our record will be, I don't really know, but I feel like this is a pretty sweet way to try to abuse Maelstrom Nexus within the confines of it being so random and not really being able to play a specific combo or synergy, because you gotta take what the Nexus gives you. So let's hope we get some sweet Nexus spins, get some sweet luck going. Anyway, that's our deck for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the gameplay videos, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, take a second and click that like button down below. It's a great way to help support the channel for free. And you can find the next video in the playlist right here.